Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren Burke. I'm founder and CEO at Ljs Advisory. It is April, and for those of you who are not aware, it is actually Earth Month. It's 30 days where we all stop and appreciate our planet and recognize that it's incumbent upon all of us as people and business leaders to try and keep her safe and beautiful by doing all that we can to tackle issues around climate change and driving sustainability throughout our practices. So it is the perfect time to have my friend here, John Osborne, who leads the US market at AdNet. I won't steal too much of John's thunder. I'll let him introduce himself, but we are here to really learn from Don and AdNet, who is a company that focuses on helping marketers tackle the climate problem by reducing carbon emissions across the entire, we'll say, marketing life cycle. Right. So I don't want to misspeak here. I will hand it over to John now. So John, welcome to this lovely episode where we tackle all things sustainability. Tell us, give us a little bit of info on you. Where are you coming from? Tell us about who you are, John.
Thanks. Well, it's great to be here with LJS Advisory, and true to your words, it is indeed April. We've made it to April. And in many parts of the country, spring is springing. So what a better time to take a look at the world around us and roll up our sleeves and get involved and celebrate, recognize, or take action if that's what you want to do. So it's a really fun time to be here with you on this call.
Awesome. So John, talk to us about your professional journey. Did you see yourself leading an entire market for a sustainability focused company?
No, and I really view it as a we, not a me thing. And that's
Sure.
really, one of the principles here. There's a lot of partnering going on. And, like in anything, we can go further faster when we're partnering together. And as you stated up front, our role is to really try and serve the greater advertising and marketing community. We're here to help everybody. If I was wearing a button on my lapel, it would say, "Hello, my name is John, and I'm here to help." That's all we're trying to do. And there is a lot of focus on sustainability through the lens of driving business forward. I tend to think of it as everything we're doing is really in service of companies that elect to pursue this as a business strategy. So we think of sustainability not just as a noun, but really as an adjective. What we're trying to do is help companies drive more sustainable business results in the long term. So many corporations that have been at this for a while are already into the measurement and the management phase of their actions. And some are in the earlier part where they're learning about this. And we tend to try and help all comers, regardless of where they are in their journeys, as they focus on trying to curb, measure, manage, and ultimately curb carbon emissions.
That's a really good explanation. So when did AdNet actually get started in the space?
Well, we got started. We were born out of the Advertising Association out of London, which is which is the predominant trade organization. And in short order, we built up a base of support of 60, 70 companies or so. And we recognized early on that this is not just a topic that is of great interest in one area of the world. It tends to be of great interest in many areas around the world.
Right.
And so there was a bubbling interest in the United States. And I was coming out of a career at Omnicom, where I was humbled to work on business on the creative side of the house at BBDO for a number of years.
Yep.
And then I migrated over to OMD, where I was the CEO for 5 years, working through the lens of media and data and analytics and solutions. And so coming out of that, given that sustainability tends to focus on the actions that people take in the marketing ecosystem, a lot of our early efforts were focused on production, what goes into the making of the communications itself, and then also media. And that was kind of an eye-opener for me, quite honestly. But back to your question, I'll come back to that. One of the things that got me personally interested in it is I've always been very involved in the American Red Cross. And so what I noticed, and I'm not a rocket scientist, I'm just an average person, but I noticed that the frequency and the severity of weather events was increasing, like at a straight line up.
Right, absolutely.
And just the number of storms, even in the United States over the course of the last couple of years,
Yeah,
whether it be tornado outbreaks, hurricanes, or even wildfires and things along those lines, that tends to play a major role in disrupting supply chains,
totally.
how business gets done. And so, I've seen firsthand the impact of these things.
Yeah,
And so I felt like my calling was calling in a way. I've
right.
always appreciated the environment. We're blessed to have a little place, a little cottage up in Vermont, get to
Mm,
take long walks and see the nature and the wildlife. So
yeah,
people kind of come into it through a variety of different lenses. But
right.
for me, it was not only a personal hankering, but it was also a professional one. And that many of the clients that I've served and working with the Red Cross, many times in partnership with some of these clients, I've been able to see some of the impact and some of the efforts to recover after these events. And
Right.
that was sort of the moment for me at which I felt like my calling was calling. And it didn't hurt that I've done time on the creative side of the house of the ecosystem, as
Yeah.
well as on the media side.
I was just going to comment on that. I feel like your view, across the marketing ecosystem, right? Like it's pretty expansive. So you probably saw even before, we'll say, these crazy storms and, major weather events started happening, some of the gaps, right? Like, hey, there's a lot of waste throughout and various parts of marketing, right? There's a lot of opportunity. So you probably saw that and then, saw the rise in these events and you're like, aha, like I can have an impact here, right? So
Definitely.
it's great that you had that moment and that more companies are having those moments because, we're all seeing the impact that it's having, right? And frankly, it's, disturbing in some ways. So, it's nice when sort of personal and professional meet. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened in your scenario.
That's exactly right. It all intertwines together into some sort of a gumbo, if you will. And
Yeah,
that's what I felt. But I hear it a lot, when I'm talking to companies and representatives. And again, just to repeat myself, what they decide to do is kind of their decision. But if you
yeah,
look at what a marketing executive is faced with day in and day out, it's decision making. And
right.
I think when it comes to decisions, a lot of factors go into it. And it's
Yeah,
complex in today's complex world.
right.
There's obviously the business imperative, and then there's efficiency and impact and those types of variables. And then, I think people want to be responsible about it too, at least from the executives that I speak with. And
Totally.
I think you hit the nail on the head. There are, and this is an eye opener in some ways to me, but take digital media.
Yeah,
Given how fast digital media rose up as a marketing lever, it kept growing at like really quick speed. And so there
yeah,
is some inefficiency built into today's model. And now you're starting to see a lot of innovation through new companies being formed, new products there's a tremendous amount of rapid intensification,
right.
new productization,
Yep.
and cleaner pathways because companies are focused on reducing waste. And
Yeah,
sometimes when you reduce waste, you also reduce carbon emissions. So it's kind of a twofer. But
sure.
again, making these decisions because it's
Yeah,
right for their business. And if this fits that strategy, that's where we come into play. And different companies are in different points of this journey.
sure. And you
It's
can
all
kind of
voluntary. It's all voluntary.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you mentioned something earlier around like, yes, sustainability from an environmental perspective, but also from a business perspective. And I feel like, again, that is sort of, they kind of meet at some point, right? And it's like, you know, if we're going to have a long-term successful business, like we probably need to start thinking about environmental sustainability. So by creating those new pathways, as you said, like are the companies you work with seeing an impact on their results, would you say?
I think we're starting to more and more and more, and it ebbs and flows depending upon what part of the world you're in. But a lot of these big corporations are doing business in various parts of the world.
Yeah,
And so when you look at their overall business imperative, this is a topic that tends to pop up. And a lot of these companies have been measuring for a while. The good news is that there tends to be a lot of conversation about where everybody thinks they're starting from. And to me, that's not really the conversation. I don't really care where a company is starting from.
yeah,
It's all about improvement. And
sure.
so you can't really know what to improve until you get a baseline,
Absolutely.
measurement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
You
sort of
probably
like,
have a feeling, yeah, I think I can do better here, here, and here, but having an expert tell
yeah,
you, right,
it's not
concretely.
unlike what you eat. We've sort
Yeah,
of grown up in a certain way. And now not that I do this, but in general, we tend to watch our calorie intake and this to that. It's not really too dissimilar. It's just sort of knowing before you go. So in production, there is a fair amount of action being taken around the world where companies are measuring their carbon footprint as it relates to the campaigns they go off and make. And where does the carbon sit? Well, some of it sits in travel. And to be clear, we're not saying don't travel. I travel all the time, but I'm prioritizing my travel.
Sure.
And there are probably some trips I don't need to take when I can do it through another means. But I'm also a big believer in face-to-face, interaction, because experiences are part of the currency of life.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to curb the opportunity for people to have great experiences. All we want to do is say to companies, look, if you care about measuring and setting baselines, because maybe there are new techniques and new technologies and platforms that allow you to create that magic in innovative new ways.
Right.
We're here to explain what they are.
Sure.
And if companies want more information on that, we absolutely can help them. And we can also help them with starter guides, best practices for companies that want to start to do it.
Right.
Those early steps tend to be the most uncomfortable, because it's new.
It's building
anything
muscle,
new.
actually. It's helpful to know that, like, hey, just start somewhere, and you're not
somewhere.
Thinking, hey, completely overhaul the way you work, but like, hey, just stop and think before, people that live in the same zip code take, 3 different taxis to the airport. You know what I mean? Like maybe you can share a cab, right?
Precisely.
So
and we find that employees really do care a lot about this. So given that it's Earth Month, a lot of companies tend to look inwardly on their employees, and their employees want to roll up their sleeves and go off and clean up a park or a beach or whatever. In 2 weeks, I'll be at the Possible conference with a lot of our supporters, and one of the supporters has organized a big beach cleanup. And we're getting a lot of enthusiasm around that because people do want to get with other people, friends, and they want to do something.
Yeah, that's great. It's nice, for you all, like your impact is made so much bigger by helping others make an impact, right? So that must feel, really good. So you at Ad Net Zero have a 5-point action plan that really serves as the guide to get the industry to net zero. Can you talk briefly about the action plan? Talk about the 5 points, and which one do you feel like has the biggest impact if you had to choose?
Oh boy, it's like choosing your own children. You can't do it, but I will tell you that that action plan that you described is really not intended as a front-facing framework. It's really behind the curtain of Ad Net Zero, but it's our organizing principle, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
When companies decide that this is something they want to learn more about, a lot of our activity is around education, to be quite honest with you. What they'll do is they'll come to us and they'll choose a lane. They'll choose an area that they want to start out in. So some companies come to us and they say, you know what? We're going to start with production. We're going to get some baselines, and then we're going to hop into media or event management.
Right.
Others come into us through the lens of media, and they work left and right, depending upon what it is. But you mentioned the 5 action kind of like organizing principle, the framework, if you will. The first sort of cluster, if you will, the working group is rallying around wanting better understanding as to what these science-based certifications are, science-based targets. What are the, world-renowned scientific bodies that are trusted and have the right reputation where they can, offer up a degree of certification. It's a little bit of the Wild West still out there right now. And that's one of the reasons we exist, in that, believe it or not, there is not a consistent way of measuring carbon emissions in the advertising ecosystem.
Right.
So one of the things we're trying to do is to standardize from a foundational level, like think of it as a foundational cornerstone, if you will, how the carbon emissions are calculated. And that involves building algorithms. And we're building these algorithms with the companies that are involved in some of these working groups in media. So we've got actually a group that's been focused on broadcast media, on digital media, on cinema, on print and audio and outdoor and out of home. And these are coming together, and we're about 4/5 of the way there. The final channel algorithm is about to fall into place, and we should be in a great position a little bit later this summer, where companies will start to incorporate, they'll start to ingest these basic algorithms into what they do. Now, the companies can and should, I would argue,
Right.
put their own flavoring and their special sauce around
Sure.
that.
Sure.
That's their competitive point of difference.
Mm.
But like a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. A carbon, 1 ton of carbon emissions should be comparable depending upon, regardless of which company is calculating,
Sure.
et cetera, et cetera. And there are a lot of new companies that have arisen that are helping companies calculate these carbon emissions. So there's been a whole sort of like clean energy business sector that's been popped up.
Yeah.
And it's banging away at helping companies get a better understanding of their carbon footprint. Again, what they do with that is kind of up to them. It is up to them. But we're here to help those that are interested in our help.
And is there a client or, a customer group that you feel that you can help more than others, or that this applies to more than others? Or is it really, it works for everyone, right? And you kind of help navigate that?
Well, it can work for most any company, but really it depends on the strategic objectives and the priorities of that company.
Sure.
And, companies are in business for business. And so if this is popping as a priority for them because perhaps they see an opportunity to clean up, their supply chain or certain elements within their go-to-market strategy, that tends to be when the call comes. There's a tremendous amount of bridge building that's going on. A lot of corporations have chief sustainability officers.
Yep.
Sometimes they're in their own sort of like silo.
Mm-hmm.
And then the marketing team is over in another group, and then a media group is sort of adjacent to the marketing group, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And so some of it is just bridge building and talking and helping facilitate that conversation between various folks within inside companies. But I would say that there's something for AdNet Zero probably that's relevant or useful or valuable to most any company that touches the marketing ecosystem. One of the things we're most proud of is the diversity of the companies in the support group. And their brands, advertisers, their agencies, the big holding companies that operate globally, as well as some local independents.
Yep.
There are some audit and verification and certification firms that are part of it. There are some consulting firms. And then there are a lot of specialty companies, because the way that we go to market as an industry now usually requires, even for like, let's say digital media, quite a few companies are embedded within that ecosystem, just in the digital media stack, for example.
Right.
And so, one of the things companies are doing is looking at some of those specialty companies and thinking like, are they offering us cleaner supply paths? Is there enhanced technology that allows us to get less wasteful in our media delivery? And then, as I said before, sometimes when you curb that, you also have an opportunity to get carbon emissions to come down.
Are you finding that now, for certain companies, it is a requirement to work with companies that are like-minded in this way, and that have, not only are they talking about it, but they actually are, taking action?
That is a great question. I mean, I'd like to think that, but it just kind of happens. You're sort of in the company you keep. And if companies are passionate about this, they tend to ferret out other companies that are doing industry-leading things, whether it be around innovation, whether invention, innovation, partnering, bridge building, whatever it may happen to be. But I'm starting to see this year real innovation where there's been rapid intensification around this productization I've talked about. Right. And many new companies have been formed where sustainable business practices are frankly embedded into the way that they go to market naturally. Right. And I would expect us to continue to see a bit more of that. Now, the marketplace tends to gyrate based on both, carrot and stick. And I think it's safe to say that in the US, at least for the foreseeable future, and I'm a US citizen, there is really not going to be much, I don't think, putting my finger in the wind, a lot of regulation that people are going to be fixated on.
Right.
However, the companies that are working on this, they're doing this, frankly, not because they're fearful of regulation. They're doing it because they see a business upside and a business opportunity. So be that as it may on the regulation side, I think, again, framing it in the context of helping companies drive better business results in the long term is where we're pretty much focused. But I think it's pretty universally applicable in different ways, depending upon different type. So a production company, they're really not going to be active in the media working group. They're going to be in the production working group. Media companies tend to, if you're an event marketing company or an experiential marketing company, perhaps Action 4 is for you. I didn't answer your question earlier. Action 1 is around the science-based targets and operations. Action 2 is really in production. Action 3 is in media, and that has a drop down, by the way, with subgroups as well. Action 4 kind of mirrors production. It's with event management, and there's a tool and a calculator we're blessed to have through ILA. It's called Trace, and companies are using that to make their own benchmarks when it comes to that. And then Action 5 takes a look at just understanding sustainable behaviors and how that comes to bear in the market.
That's fantastic. I mean, as a marketer that has experience, we'll say, across all of these areas, I feel like, they're all ripe for these kind of things. And the fact that you are making it so turnkey is really helpful. So let's go a little deeper on the media planning and buying piece for the Adtech media folks who are our viewers here. So, very candidly and openly, what are some of the least sustainable practices that you see that companies should really avoid? And on the flip side, what are some of the best practices that they should lean into? And how, sorry, if you can remember this one, how is AI impacting this? Is it hurting the mission or helping the mission?
Well, how long do we have? I'll start with the AI piece. Sure. The AI piece is both solution and potential short-term problem, because as AI is becoming, a much bigger focal point within business operations, AI is sweeping across every nook and cranny of this industry. I think it's incumbent on us to be thoughtful and responsible of how we employ AI in the construct of the broader marketing actions that we take. I think AI, if used intuitively in a pulsing fashion to help take an idea that is in the roof of someone's mind and help it come to fruition, in very fast order with the click of a few buttons, that helps, I think, advertisers understand what the idea really is versus the old school where I was like dragging foam core up in portfolio bags to and from meetings on a daily basis. Now you can go in and not just talk theory. Imagine an idea. No, you can actually say, I have an idea. This is the idea. And I just did this on the way here, and take a look. Like, here's a mood video, or here's a commercial that we did with a few clicks of a button. And with green screens and modern technology, there is amazing. A lot of it was born out of the pandemic when production shut down. And guess what? The advertising industry does amazing things. They have amazing superpowers to innovate and find their way around and over big monumental problems like a pandemic. The work started up again, and it was done virtually. And amazing communications came out. So AI and media, if AI is just constantly on pumping away, and there is a consequence of that, in that there has to be energy to power all of that. Multiple serving farms, and then water needs to be used to cool it. So I'd imagine in the short term, there's going to be a spike, but as it moderates out over time and it falls into more of a cadence of how business is done, I think it's solution. I'm starting to see amazing, mind-bending new platforms, coming to fruition that actually take this to a whole new level. Where with the click of a few buttons, all this complexity around all these inputs, whether it be reach and frequency criteria, or responsible marketing criteria, or safety standards and values of companies, all of that can be plugged into a system, and decisions can be made with the help of the machines. So that means a lot faster, a lot more effective, and possibly more streamlined, if done in certain ways. So I think there is a lot of innovation happening. There are new products and companies that are offering more streamlined, less wasteful, less fraud ways into the programmatic space. That is an unlock. And along with that, again, comes sustainability opportunity.
Exactly. The more that the data is accurate, the more accurate the data is, the less strain, we'll say, on the system, overall, end to end. So I feel like the precision that AI will eventually get us to, will provide major upside. So
I couldn't agree more. And I just think that, I do believe, if you're going to ask, not that you asked it this way, but do I think at the end of the day, is AI going to be friend or foe? I think AI is going to be friend, and I think it's going to help us drive to a quicker solution through all of this complexity in the long run. I really do believe that.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. I feel like it'll continue to be less polarizing, right? When we all start to see the benefits.
I see what you did there with the polarizing comment. You were funny there. That was good.
Oh, you like that? Cool. Wish I could say it was planned. Sometimes these things just flow. Okay, cool. That's super helpful. So, as we said, it's Earth Month. It's 30 days. We're really here to celebrate and actually take action in protecting our planet. So, obviously we want to do it now, but we should be doing this every single day as part of our business practices. Do you think that we're doing a good job year round based on everything that you're saying, or, are companies too focused on, hey, let's focus on this month and just do it well, right?
It's up to the company. I personally believe, you're so smart. You took my line. I was going to say every day is Earth Day. Every month is Earth Month.
I'm with you. Yeah.
It really depends on the company's priorities, to be quite honest with you. It really does. But I will say that I definitely think employees are an important stakeholder, a group of stakeholders in this equation. And I think companies are very aware that even in the world we live in today, which is not that long after the pandemic, companies are still struggling with how to offer better cultures, better company experiences for their employees.
Yeah.
And one of the things I hear most when I do a town hall meeting within a company or whatever, I get a surge of outreach from employees. And it doesn't just come to me, it comes to their management. And so oftentimes there'll be activities and plans around doing things, not just in the month of April or May when the weather is warming up and spring is springing, but it tends to play out at different different points in the year as well. I'm going to the Possible Conference, Daytonics, which just achieved a carbon neutral certification, I might add. They're hosting a big beach cleanup. That's their way of celebrating that milestone in their journey. So we're joining with them and we're doing that beach cleanup with them down at Possible. Most of our activities are just in support of our supporters, as I said before, and that's really where we're focused for the foreseeable future, as many of these companies are working now against their own game plans, and we're trying to help them along that journey.
Totally. I mean, I think the more tangible and actionable, help that you can give people, like I think back to my in-office experiences, one thing that worked really well was having a sustainability champion, right? Or multiple champions across the org, depending on how big it is.
I'm seeing it more and more and more. Absolutely. Now, some of the bigger corporations have real, MIT trained sustainability experts and teams on their, in their C-suite. But in the absence of that, a lot of folks are raising their hands saying, I want to be a founding member of a green team or a sustainability squad or whatever it happens to be. And we're there for them. If that's what they choose to do, we are absolutely there. We get called in, we come in and we talk, we present, we talk about the latest and greatest, case studies that we have. A lot of emphasis on case studies now, and more companies that are piloting programs and seeing results. I mean, I can think of 7 companies right now that are live in market tests, all of which, the results haven't been published yet. I'll keep the powder dry on it, but when they come out, I think there's going to be some real success stories there. And there are already some in the market right now.
Yeah. And I think, to have those champions across the different, we'll say, silos in the org is so important as well, to have a bigger impact. Like I have vivid memories of some of the sustainability champions, like literally almost getting on an actual soapbox and saying, guys, like this doesn't go in this bin. Like how hard is it, right? You almost need somebody kind of there reminding you. So I
do also think to that comment, I think Earth Month it's kind of an opportunity, if companies choose to do this, to connect with the personal interests of some of the employees, just taking that thread a bit further. Exactly. This is the perfect intersection between what an individual cares about, and they want to learn simple, sustainable things they can start to incorporate into their daily lives. Recognizing that work life and home life is really blended today. There's really no start and stop. So even as mundane as like, should I get an EV? Should I go buy a different kind of a car?
Right.
Look at recycling and composting and things along those lines. Now, those are personal decisions, but again, companies are at that intersection.
Yeah.
And they're helping employees carve out, their best personal lives and how that reflects and integrates into their professional lives. So I do tend to find companies are also spending some time giving helpful hints to their employees from a personal perspective. Again, what they choose or not choose to do is kind of up to them.
Sure.
And we're all a work in progress. One other thing, just while I'm on my soapbox, is perfection in this is really fleeting. And you mentioned AI. It seems like every time we round a corner, there's a new corner to kind of look around.
Yeah.
And that is just a function of the broader world in which we live. And that's cool. That's
Sure.
the world, And I think that there is always an ability for some flexibility within the framework to encompass and incorporate new things that come along. And so we're not so rigid in a certain way of thinking or this organizing framework. We are constantly interrogating ourselves and kicking our own tires to make sure we're being thoughtful about making sure we're not hurting any part of the industry. And we're generally helping every part of the industry, but also incorporating some of these new things like AI and other factors that are crashing over the bow.
I mean, always be learning, right? No matter what you're doing at the end of the day.
Definitely.
So what would you tell companies that are hesitant to make actual commitments, whether it's due to political, economic, climate, any reason? What would be your pearl of wisdom?
My pearl of wisdom is we're here to talk if you're interested in talking. But again, it's all voluntary what we're doing. And that is some of the opportunity, but also, sometimes some of the considerations in terms of our approach. We really do believe, and the advertising industry has always been an industry that is self-governed. So, we are here to inform, educate if need be, develop an understanding, look at case studies and who's doing what, where it can be shared. And to point a lens on that. But it is possible. And, we are trying to pave that opportunity road ahead. But it's up to the companies to tell us what their needs are. And then based on those needs, we're here to help them.
It sounds like you're saying, look, don't be afraid to raise your hand. And, there's no judgment here. Let's just get started.
There is no judgment. And we're not an organization. I would not consider us an activist organization. We're not out there putting the spotlight on somebody that we might think is not necessarily, totally up to pace with their own plans. We're not our encouragement has no boundaries. I'll leave it at that.
That's super helpful. And look, I think, John has made it very clear that AdNet Zero and he are here to be a resource to the marketing industry, regardless of whatever subsection you sit in. So John, any final thoughts you want to leave the viewers with here during Earth Month?
Absolutely. I've been in this industry for a long time, for about 30 plus years, and I have seen time and time again in the face of great adversity, whether it be after 9/11 or other extreme events, the advertising industry, like the pandemic, has joined arms with each other in different sectors of the industry, whether it be the advertiser side or the agency side or the specialty side or whatever it happens to be. And I've seen this industry come together and lock arms and move it forward. I oftentimes ride Metro North to and from the city to do business, to meet with companies and talk. And I take the Metro North and I have a train app. And on the train app, they've got a handy dandy carbon calculator that shows me on a rolling basis all of the carbon emissions that I'm exerting taking the train, but more importantly, what it compares to if I took a car and drove by myself. And if the Metro North has a consistent framework and a calculator that allows me to track my own carbon usage, again, I'm going to make my own decisions based on that information. If Metro North, not usually thought of as on the cutting, sorry, Metro North, not thought of as on the cutting edge of technology and innovation, if they're able to do this, I have no doubt that yet again, the advertising industry can show the way forward. And I think it's incumbent on us. But again, it's voluntary. And so I'm out there basically meeting with companies, and I'll go back to what I was saying. And maybe it echoes what you just said. My pin says, hi, my name's John. I'm here to help. We're here to support the supporters. And please give me a call or send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to try and organize a call and speak with you.
Thank you so much, John, on behalf of myself, LJS Advisory, our viewers, listeners, readers, as well as the Metro North for the plug there. Everyone should be very thankful. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for shedding light on this important topic. We look forward to, watching what's to come from you and at Net Zero. Personally, I follow at Net Zero on LinkedIn, and I love kind of the roundups that you all produce on a regular basis of all the activity going on and all the momentum. So I think we can all feel good that we're all putting our best foot forward here. So
absolutely. And just to end on a positive note, happy Earth Month, happy Earth Day. Yep. My sleeves are already rolled up, and I'm going to go out and work in the garden. So there you go.
All right, cool. Well, thank you everyone for watching, and we will talk soon.